You've been lied to. In this world, we've turned busy into a status symbol. If you aren't juggling a side hustle, a 9 to 5, a fitness goal, and 3 online courses, you're told you're falling behind. It's 2026, and the attention economy has become a distraction war. You feel like you're doing everything, yet somehow you're getting nowhere. You know that feeling. You spend all day responding to emails, researching on YouTube, and checking off tiny boxes on your to-do list. But at 11 p.m., when you lay your head on the pillow, that gnawing feeling in your gut returns. You haven't actually moved the needle on your dream. You've just been busy. This is the dilution effect. Your energy is like a laser. When focused on one point, it can cut through steel. When spread out, it's just a dull, warm glow that does nothing. There is an ancient Zen concept that explains exactly why your hustle is keeping you broke, tired, and mediocre. It's a philosophy that high-performance athletes, master craftsmen, and elite Silicon Valley engineers use, usually without realizing it. The Japanese call it Ichigyo Zammai. Today, I'm going to show you why your brain is wired to fail in the modern world, and how one ordinary designer in Austin, Texas, used this ancient secret to go from a $40,000 a year struggler to a world-class master in her field. If you're tired of being pretty good at everything and want to be undeniable at one thing, pay attention. This is going to be uncomfortable, because the truth is, you don't need more time. You need more intensity. Let's talk about why you can't focus. It's not because you're weak-willed. It's because your brain is currently being hijacked by the most sophisticated algorithms in human history. In the US, we're obsessed with biohacking. We drink mushroom coffee, wear blue light glasses, and track our sleep with rings. We're looking for a hack to handle the chaos. But the problem isn't your biology, it's your philosophy. The human brain evolved for survival, not for multitasking. 10,000 years ago, if you were hunting a deer and suddenly decided to check out a cool plant, then think about your cave paintings, then wonder what the tribe next door was doing, you died. Evolution rewarded the single tasker. But today, every time you switch from a spreadsheet to a text message, your brain pays a switching cost. Quote, graphic. Multitasking is merely the opportunity to screw up more than one thing at a time. Steve Uzzell. When you switch tasks, a part of your attention stays stuck on the previous task. It's called attention residue. If you check your phone while coding for the next 20 minutes, a portion of your brain is still thinking about that Instagram comment. You are literally functioning at a lower IQ. This is why you feel brain fog. You aren't tired, you're fragmented. We've been sold the polymath dream. The idea that you should be a jack of all trades. But in a globalized economy, average is a death sentence. Being okay at 5 things makes you replaceable. Being the best at one thing makes you a monopoly. And that's where Ichigyo Zammai comes in. Ichigyo Zammai, Ichigyo Zammai. It doesn't mean working hard. It means full absorption in a single act. Imagine a monk sweeping a floor. In the West, we'd say, he's just sweeping so he can get to the meditation. But the Zen master says, the sweeping is the meditation. If he is thinking about lunch while sweeping, he is failing. If he is sweeping as fast as possible to be productive, he is failing. He must become the broom. He must become the dust. In the US, we treat our tasks as obstacles to get through so we can reach the reward. We work for the weekend. We code for the paycheck. We exercise for the beach body. Ichigyo Zammai flips the script. The reward is the total immersion in the work itself. When you reach this state, time disappears. This is what modern psychology calls the flow state. But the Zen version is deeper. It's not just about performance, it's about devotion. Think about the greatest Americans in history. Steve Jobs didn't just want to build electronics. He was obsessed with the curve of a font, the feel of a glass screen. That was his Ichigyo Zammai. Kobe Bryant didn't just play basketball. He spent hours on a single footwork drill until his body couldn't do it wrong. They weren't multitasking. They were single-tasking with a level of violence that scared people. Let's look at a real-world example. Sarah was a 28-year-old graphic designer living in Austin. She was the typical American hustler. She worked a 9-to-5 at a marketing agency. After work, she was trying to launch a freelance brand. She was also taking a course on real estate investing and trying to learn Spanish on Duolingo. On paper, Sarah was a high achiever. In reality, she was drowning. Her design work was good, but it wasn't great. She was getting $500 logos on Upwork, competing with thousands of others. She was burnt out, her health was sliding, and her real estate dream was just a pile of unread PDFs. One Friday, she sat down with a mentor, an old school architect named Elias. Elias was 70 years old. He had built some of the most iconic buildings in Texas. He didn't use a computer until he absolutely had to. He worked in a studio that smelled like cedar and old paper. Sarah started venting. "I'm working 80 hours a week, Elias. I'm doing everything right. Why am I still struggling?" Elias didn't look up from his drafting table. He was drawing a single line. He took 10 seconds to draw one. Straight, perfect line. He finally looked at her and said, "Sarah, you're trying to build a city before you've mastered the brick. You think you're being productive because you're doing many things. But in this office, we don't do many things. We do one thing until the world can't ignore us." He told her she was suffering from the curse of the middle. The lesson: most people are too safe to fail, but too distracted to fly. They stay in the middle, being pretty good. Elias gave her a brutal challenge. For the next 90 days, you are forbidden from learning anything new. No Spanish, no real estate, no new software. I want you to pick your weakest skill in design, the one you're most afraid of. And I want you to spend 3 hours every single morning doing nothing but that. No music, no phone, no quick breaks, just you and the work. Sarah chose typography. She hated it. It was tedious, mathematical, and boring. The first 2 weeks were agonizing. This is the part, the hustle culture YouTubers don't tell you. Real focus feels like physical pain. Sarah felt the dopamine itch. Every 5 minutes, her brain screamed at her to check her email, to check the news, to see if anyone liked her last post. This is the withdrawal phase of Ichigyo Zammai. Elias called this the no-flight zone. When a plane is taking off, it uses 50% of its fuel just to get off the ground. If the pilot gets distracted halfway down the runway and slows down, the plane never flies. It just stays a very fast car on the ground. Most Americans spend their whole lives taxiing on the runway. They start a project, get a notification, slow down, then start again. They never reach the altitude where work becomes effortless. Sarah stayed in the no-flight zone for 20 days. She felt like she was falling behind her peers who were doing more. But in week 4, something shifted. She stopped looking at the clock. The spacing between letters, the kerning, stopped being a chore. It became a puzzle. Then it became a song. She began to see the negative space between letters as clearly as the letters themselves. She was no longer doing typography. She was Ichigyo Zammai. She was the act itself. While Sarah was struggling in that Austin apartment, her brain was physically changing. This isn't woo-woo philosophy, it's neurobiology. When you focus intensely on one skill for long periods, your brain triggers a process called myelination. Think of your neurons like wires. Myelin is the insulation around those wires. Every time you repeat a focused circuit, the insulation gets thicker. The thicker the insulation, the faster and more accurately the signal travels. But here's the catch. Myelin doesn't grow if you're distracted. If you're multitasking, your brain never gets the signal that this specific circuit is important. You stay noisy. You stay slow. By forcing herself to do one thing, typography, Sarah was building a superhighway in her brain. While her competitors were building 100 dirt roads to nowhere, she was building a 10-lane autobahn. This is why talent is a myth. What we call talent is usually just the result of a human being who had the monastic discipline to stay in Ichigyo Zammai longer than anyone else. 3 months later, the 90-day challenge was over. Sarah didn't feel like a different person, but her work looked different. It had a weight to it. It looked expensive. A major tech startup in San Francisco was rebranding. They were tired of trendy designs. They wanted something that felt timeless. Sarah submitted her portfolio. She didn't have the most creative pitch. She didn't have 50 different styles. She had one style, executed with a level of precision that was frankly terrifying. The CEO called her personally. He said, "We've looked at 500 designers. Most of them are good at everything. UI, UX, illustration, branding. But your typography, it's the best I've seen in a decade. It looks like you spent a lifetime on it." She landed a contract that paid more in 3 months than she had made in the previous 2 years. She had left the curse of the middle. She wasn't a graphic designer anymore. She was a specialist. And in the US economy, specialists get paid like surgeons, while generalists get paid like interns. There's one more piece to the puzzle. Even after Sarah became successful, Elias told her, "Beware of the expert's trap. To keep your edge, you must maintain Shoshin." Shoshin means beginner's mind. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. The moment you think, "I've mastered this," you stop practicing Ichigyo Zammai. You start mailing it in. You start multitasking again because you think you're too good for the fundamentals. This is why the greatest masters in Japan and the greatest performers in America never stop practicing the basics. Stephen Curry still practices basic form shooting every single day. Jiro Ono, the greatest sushi chef in the world, spent 60 years making the same types of sushi, always trying to make the rice 1% better. They aren't looking for new. They are looking for deeper. So how do you apply this to your life right now? How do you escape the dilution effect and enter the state of Ichigyo Zammai? It's not about time management. It's about environment design. 1. Identify your lead domino. Most of you have 10 goals. I want you to pick one, which is the one skill that if you became world-class at it, would make all your other problems disappear. If you're a programmer, maybe it's system architecture. If you're a writer, maybe it's story structure. Pick the one that scares you the most. 2. Create the monastic block. In the US, we love collaboration, but mastery is a solo sport. You need at least 90 minutes every morning before the world wakes up. Phone, off. Not on silent, off. Wi-Fi. If you don't need it for the task, kill it. No music with lyrics. It distracts the language centers of your brain. 3. Embrace the boredom. When you sit down to do your one task, you will feel the itch. You will want to check your email. You will feel stupid. Stay in the chair. Ichigyo Zammai is a muscle. The first 20 minutes are just cleaning the pipes. The real work happens in the final 30 minutes. 4. Kill the side hustles. This is the hardest part for Americans. Stop trying to be a serial entrepreneur when you haven't even mastered one trade. If you're learning to code, stop trying to learn real estate on the side. You are diluting your fuel. Kill the distractions so the main project can breathe. Originality is not the starting point. It is the destination. You don't get to find your voice until you've spent 1,000 hours copying the masters. You don't get to innovate until you've mastered the rules so deeply that you can feel them in your bones. The focus paradox is simple. To have everything, you must be willing to do only one thing. If you look at your life today and it feels like a mess of pretty good things, stop, take a breath, pick up your broom, and sweep. Real learning is uncomfortable, it's repetitive, it's boring, but it is the only path to a life that actually matters. Stop trying to be productive. Start trying to be absorbed. If you've made it this far, you're already in the top 1% of people who can actually focus for more than 30 seconds. I've got a question for you. What is the one skill you've been diluting? What is the one thing you're going to go monastic on for the next 30 days? Comment it below. I want to see what you're committing to. And if you want to know more about the concept of Seishin and the importance of simplicity in a world of chaos, subscribe this channel and press the bell icon